3, one mid-state family is receiving some closure after their loved one went missing 39 years ago. Police say they matched an unidentified skull to a TSU student and mother.
Welcome back to CRIMETOBER. Tonight's story takes us to Nashville, Tennessee, where a young black college student, also a mother, disappears on her way to class in August of 1986. For nearly 40 years, her family has prayed and wondered what happened to her. And now a skull that was found in 2004 has finally given her name back. This is the story of Alice Mae Sullivan. Alice Mae Sullivan was a 20-year-old who went to the Tennessee State University. She was also a devoted mother to a 3-year-old. She was described as being very loving, hardworking, and super independent. And she was on her way to building a life for her and her son's future. Her mother, Lily Sullivan, would describe her as being very gentle but strong. She was the type of child that would always call in, oftentimes twice or more. But on August 28th, 1986, Alice Mae Sullivan didn't return her mother's phone call. So on August 28, 1986, Alice would drop her son off to the babysitter so she can head and make her way to class. She was last seen walking near the Gentry Center, which she was supposed to attend her 1 p.m. class, but Alice never made it, and she never picked up her son. And when she did not call home that night to talk to her mother, which she would do on a regular basis, her mother, Lily, knew something was strange and offsetting. By the next morning, Alice was reported missing. Now, at the time of her disappearance, she was currently living at what they call the Town Terrace Apartments with her boyfriend. These apartments were very close to campus. You guys know how that is if you've been around a university. They have a lot of apartments that's near the, off-campus housing. Now, after she vanished, Alice's mother, Lily, did, of course, check with her boyfriend to see if maybe he knew where her whereabouts were. The boyfriend reported that Alice never came home that night and he did not see her. And here's where I get a little confused. Because some articles, now this is not like a big story, but some articles say that she never picked up her son, right? But then some articles say that the boyfriend had the son. So those two parts have me a little confused because I don't know if he went to pick the son up from, the babysitter, but then some articles say that, she never came to get him from the babysitter. So there's a lot of misleading things. So I wanted to throw that out there because one of the articles that I'm reading is from Oxygen, True Crime, and then of course MSN and things of that nature. So I don't want to say the wrong thing, but that is what I'm reading, right? I'm reading that he told her mother, Lily, that Alice never came home and that night and he was watching her son. But some of the articles, like in the beginning, say that the 3-year-old was at the babysitter. So there's some pieces that I'm not really sure about. But again, this is not really a big case until we get to the next part in the story. So I just wanted to throw that out there because some of the things I'm like, that's not making sense to me. But Lily, Alice's mom, mentions in some of the articles that I read that Alice was planning to move out of the apartment because she kind of wanted to move back home and then commute to college. And I can understand that when you have a child. It is hard going to college with a child. But it also says that she never really went into details as to why she wanted to move back. But from that moment on, from checking with the boyfriend, Alice not going to her afternoon classes, this is where things would really change for the Sullivans. On February 20th, 2004, almost 18 years since Alice Mae Sullivan had disappeared, a contractor ends up finding a school. So this contractor was building homes on Stoker Lanes in Nashville. And as they were beginning to start to build, they ended up finding a skull in a wooded area. Police, of course, were called and they did conduct an investigation, but they could not locate anything else, like no signs of clothing, phones, no other body parts, only the skull. And they also mentioned that there was not any trauma to the skull. Now, at the time, there was not technology that could kind of help break through to find out who this skull belonged to. So the skull was actually put up in protection in order for one day that they will be able to locate and find who this skull actually belonged to. So in 2002, detectives reopened the case with help from forensic scientists at the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification. Tested the DNA, and the DNA did come from a genetic probe. So finally, on October 3rd, 2025, they were able to put a name to this skull that had been sitting since 2004. And that skull belonged to Alice Mae. After that, like almost 40 years, y'all, almost 40 years of this disappearance, and Alice's family not knowing where she is or if she's alive, they finally figured out that this is her skull. But it leads to more questions, but it does allow them to know that they actually found their baby. Now, detectives do believe that Alice Mae Sullivan her death was a result of fact. Now, her mother Lily did say in an interview that the pain doesn't go away. It still hurts, and rightfully so. It doesn't take away, you know, the simple fact that, okay, yes, my child disappeared, but now that I have a skull of my child, now I don't even know what actually happened to my. But police do say the investigation is ongoing, and I think that gives me hope. And that's why I wanted to add Alice Mae Sullivan's story to CRIMETOBER, because I think that is beautiful in the sense of how I've always preached on my platform. If you've been here since the Milk Carton days, I love when families are able to finally kind of figure out what has happened to their loved one, even though that is not the answer that they are seeking. Of course, you want your child to be alive, right? But I always try to hold out hope for these families, because I just know that it may not take away the pain, but it can give you that, like, I finally know. But the story of Alice Mae Sullivan is a heartbreaking one. It is a story of holding on for dear hope. It is holding your breath to figure out what has happened to your child. And as a mother, I just cannot imagine. Alice Mae Sullivan was 20 years old. She was a young mother. She was going to college. She was doing everything that she was supposed to be doing. And unfortunately, her life came to an abrupt end. Her story reminds us that missing person cases are not forgotten, that people still think about the individual that has disappeared, and how one day, if we continue to hold out that little bit of faith, that we will figure out where that person is. And I'm just so grateful that the Sullivans are able to get some type of closure. It may not be the closure that you seek, but you kind of have an idea, okay, my daughter is no longer here. Now we can begin to break down the pieces to figure out what has exactly happened to my child. So as we move through CRIMETOBER, the real horror isn't always those that are in masses. Sometimes it's about the victims that are still missing, that families are holding out a grave of hope to figure out where their loved one has gone. And I will leave it with this. If I always say this on my platform, I haven't said it in a long time, but we live in a society where people rather be quiet and not tell. If you see something, say something, because families just like Alice's deserve to know what has happened to their child. They deserve to have people speak up. And not only just Alice's family, but so many young Black men and women and children that disappear on a daily. They deserve to have their story be officially closed, if they are indeed, you know, of course, deceased. But they deserve that. They deserve it. Regardless of they come home safely or not, they deserve to know what has happened. As always, guys, be safe this Halloween season, because it's spooky every day, y'all. But be safe. See you guys tomorrow.